Right, guys, let's try not spoil what we've got going on here. So if you don't know my results from Discord or whatever, no worries. But I am going to do some match replays. Um, we may be muddling our way through these options on the screen here, but we're going to give it a go. So this first match against Hard and Scales, obviously we don't know that as you queue up. He did try and give us a clue with his username. And I'm just going to stop when interesting things happen. So we play birds, we bounce an out by Mavager. They come back bigger, stronger. So we repeat the process by pinging again. So if you look, this hand's played really nicely. I mean, we had 5 mana on turn 3, etc., etc. But that's a problem for us. So we just hold up Resto, just in case we try and move in on this guy. In response, we can Reflector Mage it, which we do. We've killed our birds, we've killed a Ballista, so doing okay at this stage. In fact, I think the Ballista ends up back in hand. I misplay this turn from memory. I forget to tick this up. I was tanking for ages on whether to down tick it and cash it in or not, and I ended up choosing not to and forgetting to do this. And obviously they have a fairly decent. They use the Zabaz to destroy their own thing to get the modular counter over here. So they grow this to a 7/7, I think. Kill the wall that I'd blocked with, kill the Teferi. So this should be a 2/2 if I had upticked the Teferi, but I didn't. Which kind of matters here, I believe. No, it didn't. So we managed to shift all our stuff about, bounce something, and then so if you didn't really catch that, I don't blame you. They killed the Fibble Flip to stop me drawing cards. The Reflector Mage bounced something, bounced the Ballista, but they sacked it in response. And then I used the Resto to flicker the Yorion, to flicker the Resto and the Reflector Mage again. So now they get in, they destroy their own Zabaz to move the counters onto here, and then they kill the Yorion. I bounce the Ballista again, and it leaves me with like 5 power on the board and really kind of out of gas at this point. They have what we know is definitely a Ballista in hand, and the Saga, so we're not in good shape. Bone Shredder's a blank, so I think that's this game done. We do get him low, but don't quite get that. The Throne of Geth actually is pretty scary. I can't attack with everything. I missed the onboard trick there. I wish I could go back, but what they do is activate the Ink Moth, sack it to Throne of Geth to grow this by 1, but because I had in scales, it grows by 2, and they kill the resto. But I couldn't, and they grow this as well. No, they don't. Yes, they do. They forgot to proliferate this though, so that's a small added bonus. But I couldn't attack full out there, even though I wanted to, because this would die with the magic counters. Move on to here, and they would just have me dead on the back screen. So, but as it turns out, they just have everything at this stage. So I don't. We lose that game. A little misplay that's Teferi, I don't think really made the difference. The Walking Ballista was just machine gunning us down all games. So we move on to game 2. We have quite a chunk of stuff with Kataki, Collector Mage, Collector Roof, an extra path. We just have stuff. So we Prismatic Ending their Hard and Scales and play a wall, which is pretty good turn 2. They play a second Hard and Scales, and I kind of just get a bit confused here. Eldari's call for Kataki, thinking I'll force them to remove this first, and then play the Youth, but actually the Youth stops their removal in its tracks. So I should have probably just led on this and sandbagged this for later. So that was a mistake. I don't have red mana for Omnath at this stage in the game, and I only have 1 green, so I'm totally legged up. I'm kind of just floundering around. The Kataki's gone. I've played this instead of this, and I really shouldn't have done, because we knew that they had Lewis in hand, and we knew they had Ballista in the bin. So but we continue to not draw green sources, so we play the Collector Reef now, a couple of turns later than it should have been, and then we continue to miss green sources, so I played a wall, which is a bit greedy. I should have probably played one of the dorks, because now I'm in the same boat as I was last turn. I play a dork, should have played the birds because it adds red for this. With the Utopia Spell, doesn't really matter, but anyhow, I'm still just blocking, taking 4 from this each turn. They, assumingly, just have a bunch of artifacts that care about this card. So we do Hierarch. Whoa. Man, I should have pressed all those buttons. What we did there was we tapped the Hierarch to put the Utopia Spell on red and put it on here. And then we played the Omnath, drew a card, played a fetch land, cracked it, made the 5 mana, played Yorion, flickered the walls and the Omnaths to draw 3 more cards, but I also flickered the Utopia Sprawl so that I could name blue and put it on the snow-covered forest, which would let me cast the Ice Fang. So this line here nets me a mana, but they scoop. The Collector Reef is doing its work. We've drawn a bunch of cards. We don't particularly have a clock, but it doesn't really matter. So we go to game 3, and what happens here? Let's have a peek. Well, I think I've pressed a button or two too many. Anyway, so first turn they Stirring, second turn they play Animation Module. So they have Inkmoth and Saga in hand that we know of. And I have this awkward spot where essentially I can't play 2 cards in a turn. I think I would Utopia Spoil on blue so that I could play Ice Fang. Yeah, with the intention of playing Ice Fang on their turn 3, our turn 2, obviously. So that's what happens. And here, I don't remember exactly what I did. We play Teferi to bounce the Urza Saga. Okay, and they make a construct. I make some real questionable plays in this game. So, for example, now they play Hardened Scales, they replay the Saga, they play the Worker, so they make a token. So they're going wide and getting value. And when they attack here, I decide to let the Teferi die, which I think's fine. And I just pass here with a plan to play Resto and holding up Path. But again, I'm really just not sure if that's correct. They've got... what am I pathing? Well, there's stuff to path, but there's better stuff to come. So I'm not sure it's the right option. Anyhow, again, I miss an onboard trick. So I flash in a Resto, which I think is fine. Draw a card. And then I get tricky here, and I block the construct, block the worker, block the servo. So I'm taking 0. And then I path my own Hierarch, which gets me a basic land, which makes the Ice Fang have Death Touch. But they activate Animation Module to put an extra counter on the worker. And because of Hardened Scales, it makes it a 4/4, and my Resto Angel is dead. If I block the other way round, so the Resto blocks here, the Hierarch blocks here, then none of this happens. I keep my Resto and kill the servo. So that was a mistake. And I'm just constantly backed into a bad spot. So I rally her for the Ice Fang, get the Fulminator back to get this, but they play Veil of Summer. So again, still not in a great spot. And they make some more constructs. They get the Ozolith, and I start to flood out. We pick up Yorion, play a bird, hold up Path. And holding up Path is really good, but they Prismatic Omen. I feel like I have to path the 8/8 because I want to keep this in play. And at this time, Join and Witness is absolutely perfect. We re-pick up the path, and then we grab all our stuff. We grab... Why does that Utopia Sprawl start bouncing about? I think that's just a playback error. But we... I hate moans about what we draw, but I just say, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't put the cards in my deck. I think the playback has died. Yeah, that's what's happened here. So, anyway, what happens here is Avalia gets back... could be Utopia Sprawl. I don't remember. But the Witness gets back the second path, and I path something here, but the Ozolith gets tokens, and when and they just keep going wider and wider. And then I think I draw a Resto, Flicker the Yorion, and get these things again. You can see here the chat's carried on, but the playback's not. The Resto picks up the Yorion, and that flickers everything, which gets me the 2 paths back again. So I end up using the same 2 paths something like 4 times. But the animation module and the Ozolith just mean that they end up... I think they have a 20-20, a 15-15, and a 10-10 servo token. And I just can't recover. And we're so close to winning them out of clock. We've won them out of cards. And I do misplay. What happens is they play a Ravager, and I'm holding up path that they know about. And I cast a Solitude and block. And at this point, they have 3 1/1 servos going through, and I'm on 4 life, and they activate Pendelhaven, which obviously puts some 4 power on the board. But the Solitude has lifelink, and I forget, and I path the bigger servo token, thinking that I have to stay alive, and then they move in with the Ravager. So if I just let it happen, I probably go to 1. I'm probably in bad shape, but Modo didn't let me see what I was going to draw. And if I drew Kikijiki, for example, I would have won the game. I'm fairly sure I had the red mana. If I'd have drawn Elajami's Call, I'd have won the game. So that was 3 outs to just win on the spot. And I had the Ecologicals to just, like, really get at them, basically. Like, get 4 really good cards. I wouldn't know what I would have got, but we lost that game. I don't... Obviously, the thing is that because Modo didn't let me draw the extra card, I don't know whether we would have had a chance to win the game or not. And obviously, you can't see what was going on here, but I had a punt with the path, which cost me a turn, and that extra turn could or could not have won us the game. If it wasn't one of our very, very best draws, there was no chance we were going to win. But anyhow, we started the league 0-1. It does get better, so hang about. We're up against Mill here, and this hand looks just dreadful against Mill. There's not much going on. They just play crabs and mill me loads, and then I crack a fetch, get a higher art down, and at this point in the game, I'm feeling... I don't even play the hierarch. Why don't I play the hierarch? It's because I want the Bone Shredder mana. Yeah. So there's no Overgoing Tomb in this list. I have just the Triome and just the Bone Shredder. So because my hand was so bad, I decided I wanted Bone Shredder over everything else, and so I just didn't hierarch. They played more lands. They played Visions of Beyond. They Archive Trap. They Path. What did they Path? Oh, they pathed their dude that I tried to Bone Shredder, which then mills me and ramps them. So kind of cool play from them. And they Tasha's blah 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 lands to mill me, and I spot an Endurance in the bin. And I'm not playing the Echo, obviously, but I play the Witness to pick up the Endurance with just 6 cards left in my deck. But I don't have a green card. But that's not going to matter because we're going to put a step on our upkeep and play the Endurance in our upkeep, put all the cards back on the bottom, play its fairy, tick it up, so protect ourselves from some instant speed shenanigans. They mill me for 27 cards out of their lands this turn, which is pretty impressive, but they're down to 1 card. Ecological is just an amazing rip, because Charming Prince and Resto Angel are extra copies of Endurance at this stage. And so I'm just working out exactly what I need. But I pass because we can eco at instant speed. So let's see if I do that. I don't remember. if we actually even felt the need to. I think we did. Or maybe we waited a turn. No, we did. Just press play here. What did we present them with? I assume Resto, Charming Prince, Omnath, and Rallier, because the Rallier gets me back. I know I couldn't Rallier because we didn't have a vault. I put to Omnath and Icefang, which are the two cards they should have given me. But my plan here was, if they give me Omnath and Icefang and I draw 2, I had to Fairy bounce my Endurance and just cast it. So we had won that game, but as soon as they did this, I could, like Charming Prince, Resto the Witness, Charming Prince the Endurance, or even Charming Prince the Resto the Witness, so that the Resto comes back, I flicker this at instant speed, but I get a combat step with it, and I still have the Teferi bounce. So basically, Endurance just carried all the way through that game, really quite comfortably, really easily, and it's really good fun. So we go into the next game. I board up. So what have I got here? I have 8 cards in hand and 77 in my library. So I board up to 85 cards. I just bring in anything that is just remotely reasonable. This should have been sideboarded out, but I missed it. And we just... Oh, by the way, here, that should be Stomping Ground white, but I go Temple Garden red, and that's definitely wrong. They're stuck on one land, but they keep playing crabs. We are stuck on one land, but we have Ren and 6. They play another crab. We pick up the land again. We pass with Veil of Summer. Eladramri's up, and then they go for it, right? So they play their 4th crab, then they play a land. So I Veil of Summer to protect me from the mill, and then I draw a card because they played a crab first. So that worked out really well. And when we did that, we drew another Veil of Summer and the Endurance. So at this point, we're not completely locked in. But we're pretty good. So I crack a fetch. To trigger a vault. I get my Rallier. I pick up another land. So I'm just trying to get ahead on land because this deck is super greedy for its mana. But we're trying to play Yorion. We're trying to play Endurance and other spells in a turn. So they mill us right down to 33 with a Field of Ruin in play. And I go for a Icefang here on end step, which... it's fine, and they Field of Ruin in response, which is also fine, and I don't draw a card off the Veil of Summer, so I choose not to. I choose to let them mill me, which is maybe slightly greedy. But anyway, we go right down on cards, we draw a land, which is fine. We're pretty close to ulting this Ren and 6 as well, so we pick up a land, we play it untapped, life total doesn't matter, and then we Endurance at sorcery speed because they could just have counterspell, and I just don't want them to have that. And if they have something different, then fair enough. They Surgical Might Omnath, which is a one-of, so we let that happen. We took our library, we draw a card, we play a bird, we swing out, and we still have Veil of Summer up. They play a fetch, which mills for 30. Which is kind of crazy, and then they scoop. So Endurance just was doing the work. Although they've milled for 30, they have 1 card left, so even if they draw another fetch and mill me for another 30, I'm still ahead. They're going to have to start blocking soon, and we have this ulti, and when we ulti, we can Ecological. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we can Eco for X5, which would mean playing... Resto Angel, Charming Prince, which took these, so they can't give me that. And then you would take Kiki-Jiki, and I didn't have the... oh, no, I had the conscripts. So you take Kiki-Jiki conscripts, Resto, and Charming Prince, and they probably... well, if they give me Charming Prince and a Resto, the Endurance is going to tuck my graveyard back in, so I'm completely fine. If they give me Charming Prince Kiki-Jiki, I can Kiki-Jiki the Endurance. Basically, Kiki-Jiki, Charming Prince, and Resto Angel all took the Endurance, and they've got to give me one of those plus conscripts. And if they're giving me conscripts, they can't give me Kikijiki. So I'm going to end up with conscripts plus Charming Prince or conscripts plus Resto. So it's probably Charming Prince. But at that point, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We could have discarded this land, ulted this, discarded this land, and still had another land in hand. So, yeah, we just real easy win. They scooped at just about the right time. Maybe should have made us play it out, but hey ho. So we go to match 3. We're 1-1, and we're up against Tron, and we decide to prismatic ending overplay birds, obviously, and they scoop. I hadn't noticed that they'd mulled, but they mulled all the way down to 4, and then we prismatic ended their map, and they just scooped. They didn't want to know what we were doing, they just scooped. And then in game 2, I misplay. So we lead on Stomping Ground and white, and then we rip the... So here we go. So we rip the land that we need to be able to play the arch on, and we have Utopia Spell. So we put the Utopia Spell on here and name blue, ready to have all our mana fixed, and then we just like fuck up and play Teferi instead of arch on. They play Khan, and we just can't beat that because we're going to lose all our mana. But if we'd have played this, they wouldn't have been able to Khan because one of their lands would come in play tapped, and then next turn we might have been able to do something. We'll never know. But I mean, we were behind. This is only buying a turn, and we're stuck on one spell at that point, and it's probably going to be like run and 6, pick up a land, pick up Yorion, and then we're going to lose to the Khan anyway. So probably didn't matter, but the punt was a bit annoying. I realise I'm missing some of the action by clicking this button, but my apologies for that. I keep this hand because it has the potential to like blank a Khan with this Resto and maybe just combo them out. But we just start to flood, and so I decide to play the Archon and attack land just to try and get ahead. Just to buy me some time. You know, just buying a turn gives me the potential to combo. So we play the birds, we swing. I'm sort of expecting a Khan or a something here, but instead they play Khan and get Sundering Titan, and I'm like, okay, shit. I can't. I'm losing 3 of my lands. I go fetch Basic Forest so that I double up here, but I'm losing these 3 lands. So I attack down the Khan, attack them for 2, and I play a fetch and I don't crack it. They Sundering Titan take me off 3 lands, and at this stage I'm not loving it. I have 7 lands in the bin and 2 blanks in hand, as well as the Wrenn and 6 not really being all that exciting, but I get to play the Wrenn and 6, pick up the cycle land, and then shock, and now that gives me the chance to cycle this to just draw more cards. So I swing for 6 in the air, 5 in the air, not loving this spot. They attack me for 7, so I block with the wall. The thinking there is that if they are... if they destroy my wall next turn and I've already taken 7, I'm just dead. So I block the turn earlier, just so that gives them 1 less turn to find removal to take out the wall. They pop the blast zone and kill my birds, which is rather annoying. But that's their spell for the turn. We cycle, we draw land, and here you've got to think, okay, do I want a redraw or do I want to pick up Yorion? And I decide I don't want Yorion. Because I decided I do want Yorion because it could present lethal. And yeah, it's better than a random card off the top most of the time. I still pick up the Triland, but I don't need it. So they do play the Khan and they eat the Resto, and then I attack the Khan down to 1. So if you look at this here, putting this down to 1 and playing Yorion gives me 6 power and they're on 6 life. So yeah, this puts us in a pretty good spot. Granted, we're dead to any removal spell, essentially. And they have 7 cards in hand. So they tick up Khan, and I just swing. And they have nothing. They have 6 cards in hand, and they have absolutely nothing. And I think this was stopping them playing all these cantrips. So God knows what they were doing over there, but it wasn't effective. They were unlucky, is all I can really say. Um, we get in. Obviously, if they have a removal spell, I'm trying to think of what they could have. Like Dismember doesn't save them because it costs them 4 life. But let's say they did have a removal spell that kept them alive. Um, our best play is Karmic Guide for Yorion, flicker everything and get a wall. It's not a good play. So we won that match, but I'm not really sure how. But we did, so that's good news. And we're 2-1, and we come up against Grissix. God, I hate that word. Like Ragavan, Lewis, Darcy. I don't know what we name these cards, but just like good shit stuff. And our opener is pretty decent, I decided to take a turn off to play Utopia Spell. And they play a Darcy, they play a Bauble, we play red in 6, and I just punt. I pick up a land and I don't kill the Darcy. Don't know why. And then the Ragavan comes in. Wow, that was a sequence of things. So what happens there? They swing this at red in 6 and the Ragavan at me, and then they play Unholy Heat. So at the red and 6. So I flash in the Endurance. I let the Unholy Heat resolve so that I let the Unholy Heat resolve because they don't have Delirium. And then that gives them Delirium, making this a 3-3. So then I flash in the Endurance to make this a 1-1. The red and 6 lives. So then I tick it up because I want to keep making land drops, and I hardcast Solitude on the Darcy. This has been a pretty ugly couple of turns for me. I haven't played it well. They bolt the red and 6 and just play a Ragavan out. But we draw a path and pick up Yorion. And then I swing, and I have just no idea why I swing. It's just such a bad move. I could have just pathed the Ragavan and swung, but instead I traded, which removes the Solitude for the Yorion. So I should have Solitude in play. They Inquisition me and take the path, so I lost my Solitude and my path by taking the line that I took. But I rip a wall, and then I rip a Yorion, play the Yorion, which gets Drowning the Locked, but I was okay with that because I have the Karmic Guide. So I was praying they didn't have Thoughtseize, they had Inquisition, the Karmic Guide stays in hand, and that should be GG's. But I have a phone call. Yellow. Yeah, you. Yeah, can you give me 10 minutes to toss that off, and then I'll be there. All right, I'll be there soon. All right, love you. Bye. Bye. Sorry, real world stuff. So yeah, wall into Yorion. Sorry, Karmic Guide into Yorion, and they have to Unholy Heat the guide. Obviously, they just can't let that just go forever. But I'm liking our spot all of a sudden. We've got all these redraws. So we lead with Teferi, play our stuff, draw more cards, and this is a house. I don't want it to get discarded, but feeling pretty good. I decide Prismatic Endings required and ditch the Alright Champion because they're down to 2. So I can Prismatic Ending the DRC, a swing for 4, and that's game. And that was the deck doing what it does really well, just like grinding all day long. Sort of on the back foot for quite some time, but still grinding pretty well. They lead on Ragavan, which is one of the worst things we can see, but we rip Ren and 6, so we can set that up going green-white. I did the wrong way around yet again. But then we play the Ren and 6 and kill the Ragavan. The issue is they took our Teferi, and then they killed our Ren and 6, but we do have land drops, so we're okay from that perspective. We play Meddling Mage named Drown in the Lock. They did have 2 mana open. They tanked for just a little bit, and I thought, well, they must have it, right? They must have the Drown in the Lock, and they just think, I won't call it. So I did call it. And it turns out to be a good move. We find out later We don't know exactly when they drew their Drown in the Locks, but I find out they play 2 in a turn at some stage. So the Meddling Mage dinks at this. Germans tucks their graveyard because they've just picked up Lewis, so we slowed that down. And they Cling to Dust to draw a card. They play a Darcy, but they've got not enough card types in there just yet. And we get Thoughtseize at instant speed. We lose our Veil of Summer, but we pick up our Yorion. We kill the Teferi finally, and they bolt the Meddling Mage. So obviously they have Drown in the Lock because they took the time out to bolt that dude. So I'm thinking they've got Drown in the Lock. So what do I want to get countered and what do I want to resolve? I decide that the Solitude... Oh, and I only have 4 cards. So I should point out here as well, I only had 4 cards in the graveyard, which is why I didn't crack my fetches. Leave 4 cards in the bin. So then when I cast the Solitude, they're forced to play a Drown in the Lock on the Endurance to put a 5th card in so that the second Drown in the Lock can counter the Solitude. And what that means is that I now have Yorion left up. They rip Colligan's Command off the top, kill my bird, make me discard the Yorion, and they have Lewis. They have Lewis and Darcy. I have Wall and lands, and I feel behind at this stage, but I draw Ecological Appreciation. I wish I could pause this, but I've clicked skip to the end of the turn. Oh, I must have pressed this twice. Let's pause. So, I presented to them Valia, Resto Angel, Witness, Sanctifier on Vec. And if they take this, they can't give me the Sanctifier. Sanctifier just removes everything in their graveyard, turns off their Lewis, and I basically win the game. So I give them Valia, Resto, and Witness. And also, they just can't kill it. So I present them Resto, Witness, and Valia, and they've got to give me 2. And if they give me Resto, I'm getting double Witness or double Valia. I really wanted the Valia because it gave me Renin 6. And a Renin 6 pinged the DRC. So my Ecological Appreciation for 4 gave me Valia for Renin 6, killed DRC, and then it gave me Witness to pick up Yorion. And at that stage, I'm like fucking miles ahead again. But they go ahead and rip Snapcaster off the top. So we're both taking it in turns to draw like gods. They rip Snapcaster, K command kills the Renin 6, and then discards my Yorion. And then in my next turn, I can't attack because we know they have Lewis. So if this Snapcaster dies, they're just going to go Lewis, Snapcaster, and look at how much stuff they have. So I can't do that. But we rip Eladamri's Call. So our turn to run like the sun, pick up Karmic Guide, pick up Yorion, and that's just it. Just like that. But it's just absolutely amazing how Ecological Appreciation put us miles ahead. They had to rip like a god to win, and then we have a ton of good draws at this stage. We have Resto Angel, we have Kiki Jiki, we have Karmic Guide. Even Zealous Conscripts would have done 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, put them to 1. We have 3 more Ecologicals. We have the 2 Eladamri's Call. Omnath wouldn't be imbalancing here. Charming Prince would be good. So we just have a ton of really good draws available, and we get one, and we win that game. So let's rush into the third. We're up against Burn. It's my opponent's incredibly slow, but we're not. They lead on Goblin Guide, reveal a land. We go with the Wall option. Rather than Prismatic Ending, I'm thinking I might need the ending for something else. We block, they Searing Blaze, which is fine. You know, the Blaze has to go at some stage. We then sort of get in a mess with our mana here. We've not got any green. So we play Prismatic Ending, kill the Goblin Guide, and then we go Meddling Mage named Bolt, which seemed fine at the time. They go Eidolon plus Rift Bolt, and I'm not loving it because I'm going to have to fetch a basic forest to Kusali Pride Mage this Eidolon. So that's what we do. We play the Pride Mage, we swing with the Exalted, we keep this to deal with this, but we don't deal with it straight away. They have a Rift Bolt, which is going to do them 2 damage, so we might as well let them take their 2. which they do. They take their 2 damage. We take our 3. They swing. We trade. I haven't bothered sacking it. There's no point paying mana. They put us to 4. They put us to 1. And I'm thinking, well, they must have a blank in hand. So we go Charming Prince. And then when we tap out, they Barge Charmers. So this missed this time out. So that's unfortunate. Felt like a slow roll, but we did have 2 blue up. So I get it. So on to game 2. Game down. And I'm feeling like this deck never beats burn. And this hand is just real medium. You might think, why is the Lavinia in there? But I'll show you. Here comes Wall of Omens. We don't want to ramp them. We block their Searing Blaze. So this is a carbon copy of game 1. And we rip Meddling Mage. And I decide that I'd rather play a tapped land and name Bolt than shock and not do it. So we take 5 that turn. They Lava Spike. We're keeping 2 mana up. And that to me just like screams Skullcrack. But it could be Boris Charm or whatever. We Skyclave the Monastery this way and they play nothing. So they had to have Skullcrack there. There's just no other reason why they wouldn't play some of their sorcery speed stuff. Anyway, they play Eidolon and they suspend Riftbolt. And I'm thinking, oh, my Lavinia's going to do the thing that I wanted it to do. And the thing that I wanted my Lavinia to do was stop Riftbolt and trade with Goblin Guys and Eidolons. And it's going to do both. So we path the Eidolon so that we don't take damage from it. And then we play Lavinia. They Riftbolt, but it gets countered by the Lavinia. They play another Eidolon. At this stage, I've got game 3 on tap, but I don't really want to... sorry, it would gain 2. I could Solitude one of my own creatures. I was going to just hold this in hand, but because I drew a white card for Solitude, and this protects me from Skullcrack, I thought, right, I'm going to play this out. So I do. They start drawing cards, trying to find an answer because they're down to 3, and that's game. So in that spot there, we had Lavinia. So Meddling Mage stopped any bolts if they had any. Wall of Omens soaked up 2 damage. Path stopped us taking 2 more from Eidolon. Lavinia stopped 3 damage. Teferi bounced an Eidolon. And we have Skullcrack covered, and we have 2 life on tap whilst we're at 6. So, you know, if they go on a bolt, we just go remove Skyclave, evoke this in, remove this because it's done its work, gain 2, and we survive. So we were pretty good there. And we're going into game 3. I still don't feel like we can beat Burn. I mean, we drew a decent hand, not an amazing hand, but a decent hand, but we're on the play. And we've had to mull and we go to a 6. And I'm actually writing in Discord here that I lost to Burn, just preemptively. But we shocked to play Prismatic Ending, and I'm not really sure that was correct. But then we play the Hierarch at a tap land, and I'm expecting the Hierarch to die a lot of the time, and it does to Searing Blaze. And I'm thinking, okay, well, their sequencing was a little bit off, so I decided Prelate would go on 2. It stops their bigger burn spells. They're down to 3 cards, and they start cracking Canopy lands, and I'm thinking, well, they don't have any 1-drops. So I crack a fetch, play a Valia, and I decide I don't want to go to 6. So I get the Hierarch back. Upside is I do an extra damage. Downside is I can't play Wall of Omens this turn. They suspend Riftbolt, which is perfect because Teferi stops that. I play a wall, I draw a card. I play a land, but I'm not going to crack it. And we get in for 5. At this stage, I mean, they've got 4 cards in hand. They should have just cast this, by the way. They were greedy. They suspended it and cracked a Canopy land instead of just casting it and killing my Prelate. They spike me, and I'm a little bit nervous. It's going to take me 2 turns to kill them. I draw another land, so I pick up Yorion. And then the sequencing is just awful here, right? I should bounce the wall and cast it and not pick this up so that I can hold up Resto, but I don't. I've now got a Yorion in hand, and I'm at the mercy of their deck. If they have a bolt for this and Boris Charm me, I'm dead. But they don't, and I have lethal, and we 4-1. And it's just a total... I feel lucky to have beaten Burn. I feel maybe we could have beaten Hardened Scales on another day. But overall, the deck was pretty reasonable. So here's the list. It will be in the comments section. Deck feels pretty reasonable. The Eldar's Call were better than I expected. I think we got lucky against Tron as well, so that's worth noting. So I'll leave that there for you guys to see. Hit me on Discord. Will hit me up on YouTube. I will reply to all the comments. Hope you enjoyed this method. Please tell me if it's like bad sound, I'm talking too fast, too slow, rambling too much, or whether you prefer the live streams compared to this method. But I've managed to cover a league in 40 minutes, and there's not a lot of stopping around. So try to just highlight the key turns there, but quite difficult to do because I was playing the playback a bit too quick, perhaps. Hey ho. If you like the list, give it a go. I mean, the only thing that's really complicated is with Ecological, you just got to sit there and go, okay, if I was the opponent, and you don't always have full information, but often you do. Often they're hellbent or down to one card. But just think, if I was the opponent, which cards would I give to me, the opponent of the opponent, right? And so, because quite often you go, okay, I'm going to get Kigijiki, Resto Angel, Karmic Guide, Omnath, or let's say Karmic Guide, Yorion, that's in the bin, and you're thinking, okay, that's a really good pile. No, let's go conscripts. This is a really good pile, so let's do it. Let's do this pile. But then, when you sit and think about it, you go, well, if they just give me conscripts and Yorion, I'm not really achieving anything. They're going to get their stuff back. Conscripts isn't going to be able to attack. It's going to tuck away. It's going to take it back. It's not really doing anything. So then you just need to think about which two cards do you not want, and okay, is there a way to make them give you something better than the two cards that you don't want, or that you want the least? You know, piles like Bone Shredder, Reflector Mage, Charming Prince, Resto Angel sound really good, but they just give you Resto Angel and Charming Prince and you didn't remove anything. So you need to think about, okay, is there a way that I can give them a pile where I always get removal? And usually it involves adding the Skyclave into the list. So you get Bone Shredder, Reflector Mage, Skyclave, Resto Angel, and there you go, all's good. If the Charming Prince is in the bin, maybe you go Skyclave, Bone Shadow, Reflector Mage, Valia, because the Valia will get the Charming Prince, which will flicker the Bone Shredder. It'll give you double removal, but it also puts extra bodies on the board. So you've got to always think about Valia with Charming Prince. You've got to think about Ice Fang potentially being a removal spell, especially if you get to uptick to Fairy and cast Eco, which is pretty rare, but it comes up. And if you can think of that, you're going to be all right. And try and leave Eco as long as you can. That's the only other advice I would give. That is the end of the stream. You can tell I'm in a rush. I've got people to go see. So thanks for watching. Take care and see you soon. Bye for now.